and I would like to welcome you to the 2025 Grants Panel for Triangle Area Artists and Arts Organizations. We have a great group of panelists here for you today. We have, starting at the top of my screen, we have Robbie Stone with the town of Cary. We have Dara Silver. She's with the NC Arts Council. We have S.A. Corrin, who is with the City of Raleigh Arts. We have Margaret DeMott with the Durham Arts Council, and we have Katie Murray with the Orange County Arts Council. I am Cynthia Deis. I'm the Education Director of ArtSwell, which is Triangle Artworks educational programming, and I have met many of you and seen many of you over the years. It's great to see so many familiar faces. I'm joined today by Beth Yerxa. She is the Triangle Artworks Executive Director, and she will be assisting me. This event will be recorded, so if you are a person that really likes to take notes and keep track of things, definitely do that, but do understand we will be posting this up on our website as well, so you can go back to review things. We'll also be sharing a lot of information in the chat, so I'm going to take one quick second and just let folks know how to access the chat. Either on the bottom or top of your screen, there will be a little chat bubble. It looks like a little message bubble on your phone. You can tap on that and it will open up the chat. You will also have a way to download the chat at the end of the event, and I will talk to you about that. There will be a lot of important links in there, which is why I'm spending time with that. I don't want anybody to miss out on those important links. So before we take up any more time, I'm going to go ahead and get started and have our panelists introduce themselves. Just briefly tell a little bit about your organization and anything that you really want all these folks to know today. So Robbie, I'm going to start again with you. You're in the top left of my screen, so.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for the invite to be on the panel. Happy to be here and share a word about the grant that I oversee. My name is Robbie Stone, as she said. I work for the town of Cary in our Cultural Resources Department. And a part of my duties in that role is to oversee our grant program for cultural arts nonprofits. The purpose of the grant program is to support the mission of Cary-based arts nonprofits. The program is funded by tax dollars. The amount for the grants is set by town policy. We have a funding amount of $1 per citizen. Cary's estimated population right now is 191,000. So we have $191,000 in our current grant pool. Our timeline for our grant, it actually, for the FY26 grant, because we're on a government fiscal year, begins on July 1st, 2005 and ends on June 30th, 2026. But our application's actually open today. And they will stay open through February 28th. Funding recommendations will be made in April, and funds will be available to distribute in September. We have some criteria, the main ones being that you're not an individual. We only fund 501c3s. You have to do the majority of your programs in Cary or have a physical address in Cary. And your mission has to be support the Cary arts and culture. We have more information on our grant program on our website, and I'm going to post that link now in the chat. If you'd like to go there, lots more information that I can share at this moment here. But I have placed it there, and so happy to be here. Thanks, Cynthia.
Well, thanks, Robbie. You did my job. I didn't even have to paste your link. I appreciate that. That was great. Okay, so I want to go next to Dara Silver with the NC Arts Council. Dara, could you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from your programming and your grants?
Yeah, and as you all know, we've got many program directors at the North Carolina Arts Council and several grants. So I'm just going to do a very high level of grants that we have, and I've given Cynthia some links that she can pop up there. So I'm sorry if I might get a little lengthy. I'll try to tone it down a little bit. But I'm Dara Silver, Senior Program Director at the North Carolina Arts Council. I specifically work with our artists and organizations team. So for most folks, I'll be your visual art, film, and craft contact. Jamie Katz Court is our contact for music and dance. Kalisa Thompson is our contact for theater and literature for those that are specific individual artists or specific arts organizations. We also have a creative economies team that works with all of the local arts councils or governments that may be receiving those grassroots dollars. We also have an A+ department that works with arts integration in the schools. And then we have a folk life department, Zoe Van Buren, and we also have a military and veterans contact, Erin Rembert. So there's a variety of us, but feel free to contact any of us if you just don't know where to go. We will get you to the right program director. So very high level, again, we've got a variety of grants, each with a variety of eligibility criteria, which we encourage you to go to individual grants and kind of read about them to see if you might be a fit, and then contact a program director to see if your program as well as your organization might be a good fit. I will say our grants are very competitive. Just because you meet the eligibility criteria doesn't necessarily have a strong program or proposal, and that's why we're here. So we'd really encourage you to reach out to us. Many of our grants will actually have a button in there that says, have you spoken with your program director? Because we want to have those one-on-one conversations with you to make sure that you're even eligible, and make sure that we can just help you submit a very competitive application. Most of our grants are going to be due March 3rd via GoSmart at 11:59 p.m. And that, again, similar with Robbie, is we're looking for projects for our 25-26 fiscal year. So those are projects that are going to be starting July 1 and concluding money spent by June 30th of 2026. Minimum grant for us, for the most part, is going to be a minimum of $5,000, but each grant will have the kind of award amount that we're expecting. General eligibility, for most grants, you're going to have to be a nonprofit based in North Carolina. You're going to have to be producing quality arts programming for the last 2 years. And you're also going to have annual cash expenses of under $20,000 for your previous fiscal year. There are some exceptions, but again, go to that the grants, go to the criteria, read our guidelines, and see if there might be a way that you could fit in there. So I think our big buckets, we've got grants for organizations. Cynthia, if you could put that link up. And then we also have grants for artists, if you want to put that one up as well. Real quickly, for organizations, for nonprofits, we have, again, several grants in there. So please look at that. That's a good starting point to see if you're in the right place. I will mention specifically our project support grant. That is for a specific project that's taking place, and that is probably one of our only grants that you could use a fiscal agent. So you could be an individual artist and could use a fiscal agent that meets those general eligibility criteria that I was just talking about, and that's a potential way that you could apply. But again, remember, it's very competitive, and you could be going against other 501c3s in there. The other one I wanted to mention is our sustaining support for arts organizations. This is our big one. This is our operational grants. We've changed our cycles. Now we do a 3-year cycle for these organizations. This is the first year that we're opening it up. We are looking to for applications for our music, folk life, and arts and education. So all of those will be open for 3 years of funding if you were awarded in those categories. And then in the following years, there'll be different disciplines. So we're starting this rolling basis of doing 3 years of operational funding for specific arts organizations. And going to the artists and grants for individual artists, most of you are probably familiar with the Artist Support Grant. We work with local arts councils to distribute those funds to all 100 counties. So I would encourage you to, if you're not familiar with it, you can go on our site. We have a list of all of the consortium, but speak with your local arts council who is heading up for that region to figure out what those dates are. We also offer folk life apprenticeship and internships, as well as heritage awards. Some of you, or most of you, might be familiar with our fellowships. Currently, they're still on pause since the pandemic, but I would just say stay tuned. It's all dependent upon budget. So typically once the grants are due in March, we'll review them, make sure that everything looks complete. We typically have grant panels in May. And then we cannot announce any awards until we are given the green light from our department after a budget has been passed. So sometimes it's hard for us to say exactly when you're going to know what the award is going to be. We're going into a bicentennium year again, so we just don't know. We hope for August, but sometimes it could be September or October. So just please be aware of that when you're planning. We would encourage projects that are in the spring, and because it just takes a while for us to get the word out, for you to get the paperwork back to us, and to get the check processed if you were to receive an award.
Dara, I love that you're cautioning patience, because I think that's something artists, sometimes we get a great idea and we want to do it right now, and that just can't happen. So I did want to thank you. I pasted all your links, Dara, in the chat, and I did want to mention, Dara referenced that for certain projects you may need a fiscal partner. Triangle Artworks, little commercial here, but we are fiscal sponsors, and we do have a fiscal sponsorship program. I pasted a link for that in the chat too, and you can learn a little bit more about exactly what fiscal sponsorship is and how that could help with projects that you have ongoing. So I would like to go now to SA with the City of Raleigh Arts. SA, can you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on and what you're seeing there in Raleigh?
Sure. So far we're all about the government, and I will continue that trend. Like Robbie, I am municipal government, City of Raleigh, the Raleigh Arts Office, and our funding program is a 35-year-old grant program that was actually founded and by Raleigh residents, not by city staff, and is still overseen by City of Raleigh Arts Commissioners. The funding is based on population to the tune of $5 per resident. And funding eligibility is for 501c3 nonprofits headquartered in Raleigh. You have to have at least 2 years experience producing arts programming, and your programming to be funded has to be open to the general public. We fund all kinds of arts programming. So everything from arts education to community theater to professional theater, professional music, dance, visual art programs, exhibitions, pretty much anything art-wise, as long as it's in Raleigh. We do annual funding. Our application deadline is terrible and has already passed. It was January 6th. And we offer program support. You can do a one-off project like a one-day festival, or you can do a year's worth of classes for kids or adults. And then we also offer operating support. The types of organizations we fund range from really small groups that are volunteer-led all the way up to really large professional institutions with like lots of full-time staff and lots of money. And that's what we do in a nutshell.
Well, thank you, SA. I shared the grants listing in the chat for you. And I'm just going to say that, as Dara mentioned, to be patient. I know your deadline passed, but folks just need to be patient because January comes around every year. So they can just get it all ready, right?
Yeah, that's actually a great point for anybody that might be a new applicant. It gives you lots of time to check out our evaluation criteria, to set up 1 or 2 or even 3 meetings with me so we can figure out what would make your project and application fundable. So having preparation time is really actually quite a good thing.
Yeah, it's valuable. So next, I would like to hear from Margaret DeMott with the Durham Arts Council. Margaret, what can you tell us about what's going on with Durham?
Sure. So we have, as Dara referenced, there is the art support grant. So we have similar several programs for individual artists. We lead Region 7 for the Artist Support Grant, which includes Durham, Orange, Person, and Alamance counties. That application is an individual for individual artists who live in those counties. It's a professional development project grant. That application opens June 15th and is due September 1. That is for the project window of 2026. So we are also on that July to June fiscal year. But the applicants get until June of 26 to spend their money, but they get the entire year to actually complete their project. We also have the Emerging Artist Grant, which is very, very similar. It was really the precursor to artist support. The artist support is funded, as Dara mentioned, by the North Carolina Arts Council. The Emerging Artist Grant, the primary funder is the Mary Duke Biddle Foundation, and again, the partner arts councils. That is serves artists who live in Durham, Orange, Chatham, Person, and Granville counties, just to keep you on your toes. That application opens October 1 and will be due December 21. And that is for, again, for a year project window that will be kind of April through March, because that's a little more delayed. We have the application, the program staggered. In many cases, we have artists who are eligible to apply to both artist support and emerging artists, so that by staggering them, we kind of allow that flow to happen. We also have a facility grant that is for artists just living in Durham County. That is for short-term use of our building. So we grant use in our building. And we have a theater, we have dance studios. It's like, oh, so-and-so is coming to town. We love to do an informal showing in a dance studio. Let's see if we can use the Arts Council. So there is a pretty easy application that allows you to apply for a grant that will help defray the rental cost of that. For nonprofit arts organizations, we have both the Season Grant and the Durham Arts Catalyst Grant. Those are for nonprofit arts organizations who are based in Durham County. That is funded by both the State Arts Council's Grassroots program and by the Durham Arts Council's Annual Arts Fund. And that project window is, again, the fiscal year, July 2025 to June 2026. That application will open February 1st, and that deadline is April 7th. So that will be open momentarily. We do encourage applicants who are new to contact me. That is, as Dara said, a chance to talk through who you are and what you're trying to do, make sure that you're eligible before you invest a lot of time in an application that turns out to be not eligible. So we won't kick you out if you don't apply to us, but I mean, if you don't talk to me first, but it's really just for your protection and to help you use your time efficiently. Those two grant programs, Season and Durham Arts Catalyst, both can be either operating or project support. The Durham Arts Catalyst is really the newcomer category. So the advantage is that all the other applicants in that category are the newcomers. You can apply for that grant 3 times, so that you are only compared to the newcomers. Season Grant, we've got this whole range from very small volunteer-led to large, well-staffed. And sometimes that is, even though the panelists really try and calibrate, that can be a disadvantage. So, and there are fewer applicants in the Catalyst. So in general, it's a slightly easier way to dip your toe in the water. We have the facility grant, also applies to nonprofits as well as individual artists, have to be based in Durham County. Finally, we have kind of a niche grant, which is the Fletcher Performing Arts Grant. It is, while it applies to nonprofit performing arts organizations anywhere in the triangle, which is defined kind of loosely, but think Durham, Orange, Chatham, Wake as your basic places. But you have to be self-producing in the Fletcher Hall of the Carolina Theater of Durham. So it is a grant specifically, it is funded by an endowment. It is intended to help with the rental costs of an organization that's taking that big risk of renting the theater and selling the tickets and hoping to cover their costs. So this is, that's why it is self-producing. You can be a nonprofit performing arts organization that someone else commission, is paying you. If someone else is paying you to perform, you don't qualify. So we don't talk about that a lot because it's such a narrow band, but it is a grant. And if you're thinking about being in the Carolina Theater, you should look at it. We also have a couple of other resources. The Durham Arts Network is a free online directory for artists, arts businesses, arts nonprofits, any legal status in Durham and adjacent counties. So it is a way to just another digital page to put up. It's based in Artsopolis, so it's a pretty robust platform that allows you to put up a lot of information. If you don't have a website and you want kind of a web page, it's a real easy, free way to do it. So we encourage you to look at that. We also completed the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study 6 in 2023. Part of that was a commissioned Durham-specific economic impact calculator. So if you are a Durham nonprofit and you want to be able to say in your grant application to us or anyone else, this is what the economic impact of my organization is or of my event. So you just need a couple attendance and kind of overall expense income numbers. You can plug those in and quickly get an economic impact breakdown of what that meant. And that can be useful. So it's free, it's cheap, it's really easy, and it's on our website. And I think I gave Cynthia that link as well.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. We will get that pasted in the chat. And thank you for mentioning that very niche theater grant, because we have a lot of theater people in this discussion today. So I know I saw a few people's eyes go up and folks are excited about it. So thank you for mentioning that one. And our last panelist for the day is Katie Murray with Orange County. And Katie, tell us what is happening in Orange County before we get to questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. The Orange County Arts Commission is an arts council serving Orange County that is embedded in county government, which is very rare in our state. It sometimes proves to be tricky, but I feel like the positives outweigh the negatives overall. We're getting ready to celebrate our 40th anniversary in February. So we've been around a long time. We are the designated county partner with the State Arts Council. So that means we receive state funding that we then disperse to arts organizations throughout Orange County. We have, also we operate as of 3 years ago, a facility in Hillsborough called the Eno Arts Mill with artist studios and a gallery and a classroom. And it's a pretty cool space. So if you're passing through Hillsborough, come by. We have a couple different grant programs. Our big two are our grassroots arts program. That is the funding we get through the state, but added to that, we also have some county funding. And of course, those are for our arts organizations. At least they receive first priority of funding. Non-arts organizations can apply as well if they're doing high quality arts programs in Orange County. Organizations have to either be based, actually with that one, they have to be based in Orange County. Our other big grant category is our artist project grant. And this essentially puts money in the hands of artists that want to do community programs. So there has to be some sort of community element involved. That is what sets this program aside from the two grants that we're a partner with Durham Arts Council on, the Emerging Artist Grant and Artist Support Grant, which are solely about, what you need as an artist. Our Artist Project Grant is about getting you money to do some sort of program in the community. That that grant has become very competitive over the last 5 years or so, other than in the pandemic, of course, but it has continued to grow every year. And one of my goals is to increase the funding available in that program, because the most exciting ideas, come from the brains of artists. And so I want to be able to get more money out for these. Both of those programs open up in June, and they're open for the month of June. And then we have our panels and everything over the summer. And then usually get the award money out in August or September. And again, it is on the July to June fiscal year. We do another grant program for arts educators in our public schools. And these are small grants that go to arts educators to help them with professional or artistic development. So these are solely to support their professional development needs or artistic development. They're not intended to go to the classroom, because we feel like if we're giving our teachers more resources that they need, that's going to indirectly benefit the students. Those will open up in March of this year and will be open for the month of March. And of course, you got to be a teacher in either Orange County Public Schools or Chapel Hill Carver City Schools. Like Margaret said, we're a partner with them on emerging artists and artist support. And Margaret is the guru on all things those grants related. We're more a support team around Margaret. We also have a program here at the Eno Arts Mill. It is our BIPOC Artists in Residence. And we award a free, fairly large studio to an artist every year. This year, actually, it's 2 artists who applied together and are sharing the space. And that offers a studio and a supply stipend, and usually opens up around October. My people that went before me gave me a few other things to mention. I also agree with Margaret that if you're a new applicant, it definitely helps to have a conversation with me and run your idea by me and let me give you my insight, with the disclaimer that, our grants are decided by panels. They are not decided by me, and a conversation with me does not necessarily mean that a grant is going to come from it. But I do see a strong correlation between people that have a conversation up front and end up getting funding, or people that don't get funding and then we have a conversation about why they didn't, and then they reapply and oftentimes do get funding because they've got that feedback in mind. The other thing I was going to mention as well is that we also participated in the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study. So we also have that data and we have that calculator, but I had not thought about getting it on our website. So I'm going to do that. Thank you, Margaret, for the good idea. And I think that's all I got.
Well, thank you, Katie. And you made an excellent point that I was also going to say. Part of the reason for doing this panel, folks, is that you have now all met in this Zoom 5 people who want to talk to you about grants. You've seen their faces. You have their contact information. Do not hesitate. Don't just throw everything you have into a grant proposal and send it off without speaking to someone first. That is a waste of your time and energy as an artist and a creative person. Make sure you're getting as much information as possible. That will help you to be in the best position to take advantage of, really, we have pretty amazing grants here in Central North Carolina for artists and in the state in general. So make sure that you reach out to these folks. So the next part of this discussion, we are going to ask some questions. We solicited questions. All of you received a couple of emails with questions. It's okay if you didn't send one in, but if you did, I have a list of them. We're going to be asking the panelists some questions. Also, if you've got a question that comes up during the discussion, go ahead and put it in the chat. We will be reading those aloud and the panelists will be answering them and discussing them. I do want to also ask if you are just a participant, a viewer of the panel, please keep your microphone muted. I had a couple folks that had to go in and mute their microphones manually. That's not me being mean. It just means that it makes it hard for us to hear the panelists. So I'm going to start with one of our first questions here. And hang on, I got to get my technology to work and get the correct screen to open up. Okay. So we received a question, and I'm going to just read the question out. And then panelists, if one of you, I think this might be best for you, Dara, but if anybody else wants to chime in, please do. The America's 250th anniversary, which is the semi-quincentennial, that is definitely a spelling bee word. The semi-quincentennial anniversary is in 2026, so it's next year. And North Carolina was one of the original 13 colonies. So we can expect a great deal of national attention. What grant opportunities will grantors make available so they and NC artists can take advantage of this huge promotional event? So I don't know if, I actually don't see Dara. I wonder if she had some. We're going to go ahead and paste a link in the chat to the North Carolina does have some grant opportunities that answer that.
I can speak real quick on.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
Yeah, there's pretty significant grant money through the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Dan Brose is the point of contact there. He used to be with the North Carolina Arts Council, so some of y'all might already know Dan. I know. Well, the one point I heard him talk about this a while back, but the one thing that kind of stuck in my brain is that they are looking for more performance-based applications. It sounds like a lot of the applications they've gotten so far are either in the literary or visual arts, and they are wanting more applications from the performing arts community. So, little secret tip.
That's a good solid tip, Katie. So we like a little bit of that that extra information that people may not have access to. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add about those? I guess you could call them was semi-quincentennial, the 250th anniversary. Did anyone else, any of our other panelists, have anything else to add about that? No, okay. So our next question is that we had, this is from an individual artist. They hope to attend an international trade show in April, and they are curious if there are grants that support this type of work or travel. Would those be artist support grants? They would be? Does anybody want, Margaret, do you want to speak about that a little?
Sure. At least artists support both of our individual professional development grants. The artist has to live in one of our service counties, but the project that they are proposing can happen anywhere. So if you're trying, and including going to conferences or trade shows, so it is eligible. The trick in the grant is, because these are all very competitive, is to make it compelling. So just because it's eligible doesn't mean it's going to be competitive. So something that says this is where the artist is, this is where they're trying to go in their career, and this is why going to this trade show is going to be awesomely impactful at this very moment, is a strong application. One that just says, hey, I'd like to go to this trade show is not. So.
Right. Well, that's a great point, Margaret, and that gets back to our earlier point. Reach out. Don't just make this grant package and submit it. Reach out and engage. You guys are going to be super busy after this panel. So yeah, so that's interesting though, that project grants are not just for an art installation or a theater performance or a dance performance. They can cover other things like this type of a trade show? Would they also cover educational opportunities, or?
They can cover things like master classes. They cannot cover tuition. Artists, this is detailed, but cannot be in a degree program. So you can't be in a undergraduate or graduate degree program. So this can't go toward that, but definitely some kind of master class or attending Penland or something like that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So we also had a question about, and I think that this gets back to, we did mention fiscal sponsorship earlier, but we did have a question if there are grants for artists, sole proprietor artists that don't require an EIN, or are there creative ways that you could suggest for partnering if a sole proprietor artist doesn't qualify? Like, would you help pair them with another organization, for instance, or is that something that is not possible?
Our artist project grant is specifically for that. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's county funded, so we've got a lot more flexibility there than we do with our state funded grants. But you have to either be in Orange County or you're serving Orange County residents.
Okay.
Artist support and emerging artists you just need a social. You are an individual. You are not.
So, okay.
EIN.
That is good to know. So we've had this question. I'm going to come off of the pre-submitted list because we've had a couple of folks ask in the chat. And we've had panelists mention that artists have to have a track record of producing high quality programs for at least 2 years. We've had an artist ask about, is that only programming that has existed in the Triangle? And we have someone else who's asked, when does the 2 years start? So does it need to be in the last 24 months? Would programming that occurred perhaps in Illinois or Florida or New York count? Can anyone speak to that?
I'll speak and do it quick. Other people can. For us, we like to see, it doesn't matter where the work happened. You have to have been in one of the eligible counties for at least a year, but we ask for work samples in the last 3 years. So those can happen anywhere. And the purpose of that time period is simply to see what is your current work, nothing geographic. That's what we do.
And SA, you wanted to chime in on that as well. Did you have?
Yeah, I would say pretty much what Margaret said. The reason behind asking for at least 2 years experience is so the panel knows that you've done this before and you know what you're doing to some extent. You might not be an expert, but you have done this before. You're not, changing from being a farmer to a visual art organization and you've never done any visual art or crop circles before. And so I agree, it doesn't matter where that's taking place, it's that it has taken place.
Oh, that's good to know.
I'll say that we don't require that. We kind of rely on the grant application, the narrative, your ability to put a budget together. We base your application, we kind of take from that how likely you are to be able to pull off the project that you're proposing. I think I don't know a set number, but I think a lot of our grant applicants in the past have been first time grant applicants, and that's kind of given them the, confidence to keep going. And then I've seen them go on to get larger grants. So we just kind of rely on the application to judge how we think this person is going to be able to do their program. And there's also kind of a taking a leap of faith element too. Sometimes we're like, ooh, I don't know, but let's give them a shot and see what happens. And the vast majority of the time it ends up great. We've had, just since I've been here 8 years, we've only had a couple that it hasn't gone. And, you know, that's kind of part of the whole experience, in my opinion.
I think that is definitely something that happens. Thank you, Katie. So we did have another question that was submitted in advance, and someone is asking about, we've had several people actually ask, that they're curious about anticipated changes that may be occurring in grant funding based on a federal administration change. When you're looking at the timeline going into 2026, what are you anticipating any changes? Are there things that you are thinking maybe more funded or less funded? Does anybody want to speak to that? Don't make me call on you, y'all. I used to teach middle school, so I know how to get the reluctant people to participate if I have to.
I mean, I'll chime in. I think for a lot of grant makers, it's going to depend where your funding comes from. So if you're relying on federal dollars to pass through and make grants, then yeah, there could be changes to federal funding. But for the Raleigh Arts Commission, all the funding is coming from Raleigh residents. So the bigger impact is when the city's mayor changes, city council changes, Raleigh Arts Commissioners change. That's where sometimes we see shifts in funding.
That's good information, I say. Yeah.
In Orange County, I'm trying to lobby the county to, we kind of have a separate set of funding that goes to the nonprofit community, and I'm trying to get a bigger chunk of that allocated to our grants programs in anticipation that the NEA is going to be a target of the next administration. And if that does happen, that's going to impact our state arts council. I'm assuming, that's a big assumption. Dara is not here to, oh, Dara is here. There you are. Hi. So I'll shut up and let Dara talk.
Sorry, y'all. My computer decided to restart mid-meeting. As of now, we haven't heard of any changes coming down the pike, but we'll wait and see. But I think we've gone through this once before, and we'll get through it again. And we stood, the NEA stood last time. I gotta hope for the best. So
Come to Arts Day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Someone paste an Arts Day link in the chat. All of you artists should come to Arts Day.
So if you don't know, Arts Day is oddly a 2-day event. Organized by Arts North Carolina, held in Raleigh. It's in April, I think, this year. The first day is kind of a conference. Second day is each county sends a gaggle of arts reps to go talk to their local legislators. So this is an opportunity to reiterate to them, especially if they're feeling beleaguered and tired and beat down and they need a little support, that the arts are important. We have never, ever, well, I won't say ever, but on the whole, you don't hear, the arts aren't important. Would never fund them. You usually hear, yeah, the arts are important, but we got a lot to deal with this year. So there will always be that. But if we don't show up and say the arts are important, they think, maybe I can let this slide this year. So they've got a lot of pushing and pulling on them, even the staunchest art supporters. So they need support from us to go fight the good fight.
And be a member of Arts North Carolina. The budget, it's based on your budget. So the membership dues are very reasonable. Organizations should absolutely be a member of Arts NC. Artists can too. But, they are the ones that are advocating on our behalf. I feel like they are very much responsible for the increased grassroots funding that we've gotten over the last few years. So everybody should, especially if you're representing an organization, you should be a member of Arts NC.
April 22 and 23. 23 will be the legislative day.
Thank you, Margaret. Yeah, it's really fun. I look forward to it every year. It feels very powerful to see all these artists walking through the legislative building and speaking to the legislators too. I've been fortunate; they've always wanted to talk to us. So, um, so we have another question about specifically about priorities, which maybe we have covered this a little bit, but I'd like to address it directly. Someone is asking, what are some ways to figure out the priorities of different grant opportunities to help tailor or frame your ideas in ways that make your idea more likely to be selected? And I think we already sort of said reach out, but are there any other tips or any other information that you could offer that you think would be of help?
I think a lot of us do information sessions. So I'm seeing a lot of nodding. So I think go look on the website or reach out to an individual and say, hey, when's the information? We do them on Zoom, we record them. So it's somewhere in between getting no information at all except what's written in the application and giving a phone call. But if you're feeling hesitant about the phone call, do the information session first, and that might spark some questions.
Yeah, and another thing I'd like to say about grant writing is, remember, you're telling a story. These people reading your grant and evaluating it, they may not know you at all. They may not, you need to introduce yourself and you need to sell yourself in that grant. Part of the selling is that it's a really well-crafted, put together grant. The budget makes sense to them, the narrative makes sense. So don't forget, sell yourself.
Well, Robbie, that leads into a second question we had, which was, and we had multiple people who asked this, does your organization publish the successful grant applications? Is it possible for folks to see previous awarded grant applications?
I have thought a lot about that because that was a route I wanted to go. We have not gotten there yet because I feel like a lot of the information that are shared by organizations applying for grants is perhaps proprietary to them. I think we would need to get permission from the individual group if we were to, for example, to show their budget sheet. I'm not sure how many groups would be open to that. There may be some, but yes, that's an idea I want to explore further.
Yeah, I think that could be helpful. I will say when I am, working with artists as an educator, examples are so valuable. And this is I'm saying to every artist that is here, if you would be willing for me to share an example of a successful grant that you submitted with future artists, please redact sensitive information if necessary. But yeah, because it is always nice for folks to see the narratives. Oh, someone has just commented in the chat that the narrative would possibly be the most helpful part to see, which I would agree. So
what I would throw in it is, we don't share entire applications, but when we do our grant workshops, we really talk about the type of language that works for the Raleigh Arts Commission panelists, and the way to frame things. And then particularly, really for any applicant, but I really try to emphasize it with new applicants, submitting a draft application to me. I will happily read through your application and give you feedback on the stuff that's really going to fly wonderfully and the places you can make your application even stronger. And I will also add in for the priorities question, look at Foundation's one evaluation criteria for their grants. That will give you a lot of guidance about what they're looking for. Look at if the grant maker has a mission statement. A lot of times they put a paragraph, right at the top of their grant pages that talks about, the change they want to see in the world and what they're funding. So you can start there, to Margaret's point, and if that's looking kind of good, then go to the workshop. And if that's feeling kind of good, call the grant officer or grant staff person, or call them first if you like a phone call, for, better than sitting in a webinar. Up to you.
I think those are good points, SA. Yeah, Beth Yorks, our ED, posted in the chat as well that it is very important to read the grant. that all the information's in there. Read it. It's all in there. And I will also be posting, we have not, this is a Triangle Artworks event that we have not yet announced, but I'm going to send the link out to everyone that's here today. We will have a grant writing clinic taking place in February. This is, it's a trial of a new program for us. We've never offered this before. This is, we have Jennifer Rice, who is a former professor from UNCG, will be leading the, it's a 2 meetings plus individual conversations where you can work on all of your grant peripherals, either for a specific grant or just in general working to get your package together. Because as we've mentioned, the narrative, telling the story is very important. And for some artists, that's easier than it is for others. She also has a lot of experience in helping tailor budgets and things. So I will paste a link to the registration information for that. It has a very limited, because it's a trial of a program, it has a very limited number of seats this time. If you are interested, I strongly encourage you to book. We know that this is going to fill up. So I will paste that in the chat here before we get off the class. Thank you. People are saying nice things about Triangle Artworks in the chat too. So we have just a few minutes left. I do want to make sure if you posted a question in the chat and you feel like it did not get answered, can you please repost, because we had a lot of chit chat and people were sending messages both directly to me and into the main chat, and I know Beth was also getting messages. But while we're waiting for any other questions that might come in the chat, I want to give our panelists one opportunity. Is there anything else that you feel really that, any message that we didn't get out during this conversation? Is there any last words that you'd really like to give out to our participants?
I've been thinking, well, of course, I want everyone to apply to my grant programs. Just because there is a grant program doesn't necessarily mean you should apply to it. So one of that evaluating question as you're looking at something and saying, do I fit? Do I want to do this? Is just, what is its timeline? Is it gonna potentially fund you when you need the funding? How much effort is needed? Does it work for you? Maybe it's going to work for you in 2 years, but doesn't really work now. I think you get a lot of education by trying. So I'm not trying to encourage anyone to not do it, but if your gut is really saying, and your gut isn't just fearful, this isn't really the time, then it may not be. Not all grant programs are the best fit for everyone at any moment.
So thank you, Margaret. Does anybody else have any other words to add?
I mean, I'll follow Margaret up and say another secret sauce to making sure it's a good fit is literally just read the instructions, follow the directions that are given, and get somebody else to read your application before you submit it. Like, pull a stranger off the street or your second cousin 18 time removed. Like, the less they know about what you're doing, that's the person to read your stuff. Because if they understand it, I think it was Robbie who said earlier, somebody said earlier, we don't always know your organization or know you. So if you write to a stranger, literally have a stranger read a draft, then you should be in good shape.
That is a great tip, to have someone who's not familiar with your work or your program. That's a very good tip. Yeah. It's a good thing for that family member that doesn't seem to understand what you do, honestly. I know a lot of artists have that as an issue. So did anybody else have any other last words they wanted to add? And we did have some. Oh, go ahead. Yes, Dara.
I was just going to say, if it hasn't been mentioned, in terms of project grants and having your narrative speak to the budget and vice versa, if you mention something in your narrative and it's a costly item, it also needs to be representative in the budget. A lot of times too, folks will ask for itemized budgets. So that's something that you create in an Excel sheet. And I would say, go ahead and make notes if you just have a line that says artist fees, I really want to know who's going to be in that line and how much they're going to be paid. So it's, sometimes you have to lump things in certain line items, but if you've got that opportunity to explain somewhere in an itemized budget, take that opportunity.
So details.
Yeah, and along those lines, one thing that I always emphasize, but still seems to get missed every year, is I think a good rule of thumb is if you're mentioning any other arts organization, like if you're an individual artist applying to do a program at like a local arts venue, have a letter of support from that venue, because it shows that you've already done your due diligence, that you've got their interest and their support. Because I've had a lot of situations where somebody proposes something and like the director of that venue is on our board and is sitting there in the panel saying, I don't know anything about this. So, it's just another element of those details and making sure that you've really covered all your bases.
Well, that is definitely a good point. I'm going to just say Beth, did you have a point you wanted to make? Oh, so I'm going to go ahead and paste in the chat that grant writing clinic link for you. I did want to mention one other resource. Triangle Artworks has what we call the jobs board. And as part of that, we have a grants page. We have volunteers that find those grants and put them there. So if you, as an artist, find a grant that's not just for you, please go onto that page and submit it so that our volunteers can know about it. We really appreciate that. You can, there is a little bit of us. We all, as a community, need to support each other and help each other. And obviously, we link to, all of the grants and the programs that were listed here by our panelists. I think the page is totally updated. I'm not 100% sure, but. I do want to invite you to check that out. If you do not currently get the Triangle Artworks newsletter, I would also strongly encourage you to register for that. It is a monthly-ish newsletter with information about the business of being an artist or running an arts organization. And we're here to support you. And that is one of the main ways that we get that information out. So I wanted to also thank our panelists so much. This has just been really, really helpful. I think a lot of information has come out and is contained here in a really nice, concise package. If you are here on this Zoom right now, you're going to get an email from me, link to this when we do have it up on our site. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll also hear about it that way. We will also be posting it on social media. If you have any additional questions or comments and you want to leave them in the chat, you can. Right now, I'm going to tell everyone how you can download the chat because every once in a while, folks don't know how to do that. So if you hover over that little chat button, there's a caret, a little triangle next to it. If you open it up, it opens up the chat. At the top of the chat window, there's 3 dots. If you pop on those 3 dots, it will give you the option to download the chat. It will download to some weird secret folder on your computer, and you will have no idea where it went, and you will try and search and not find it. So let me give you a clue. It will have the date in alphanumeric format in the title. So for instance, what is today? What day is this? It's the 14th. So it will say 01142025. So you can search 01142025 and you'll figure out where your computer decided to hide your Zoom chats. It's always a mystery. So if we don't have any last comments from our panelists, I want to, we do have a last comment.
One question has been posted twice and I didn't want them to be.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Beth. I didn't see it. Yeah.
And Dara has put something of an answer, but it's on a similar note. If our art group is a smaller part of a larger 501c3, can we still apply, or does our individual group have to be its own nonprofit? And Dara has said it depends, and you should. And so as someone who runs our fiscal sponsor program, yeah, it definitely depends, and whether or not whether part of it being whether or not the larger 501c3 is aware of and approves it. But I would talk to, as Dara suggests, talk to the grants staff.
Thank you, Beth, for catching that. I appreciate that. So, Well, folks, thank you for being here today. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of you artists. Look forward to an email with a link to the video so that if you want to watch it again. And I appreciate all of you showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.